good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you are, whoever you are. Uh oh. Don't mind that. It just knocked something down. Super excited to have a guest today. And he is in the private, or not the private, sorry. He's in the real estate investing firm. And I don't know a lot about it. So I'm super excited to get him on to get into it. Hopefully, you guys can learn not only from the stuff we talk about when it comes to the branding, but as well the stuff we talk about when it comes to real estate investing and working with a real estate investing firm. Without further ado, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Brock Morgenson. Brock, how are you today, sir? How are you feeling, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on,
Wonderful.
Albert.
Wonderful, wonderful. Listen, I apologize. I know I embarrassed myself. I knocked some headphones down. I don't know what's going on over here today. Anyway, super excited, like I said, to have you on. If you could, Brock, I want to make sure you give the audience a little bit of who you are and what you do so we can hop into it and really get into the details about this and learn this game.
Yeah, so I got into real estate about 3 years ago. So I'm based out here in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area,
Nice.
and about 3 years ago I bought a duplex, and that opened up my eyes to really just how awesome real estate is. Right? I mean, tax benefits, cash flow, appreciation, all of it, and
Mm,
instantly fell in love with it and knew I had to figure out a way to make it my full time, job and everything I wanted to do. So
right.
from there, I scaled, got into the syndication game, and that's how Smart Asset Capital was born. Grinded for a few years doing that in my W-2 job, and was able to get it to a point where I could leave my W-2 job and be a full time real estate investor, and that's what I do now, and it's amazing.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, Smart Asset Capital is the brand. You created this, like you said, off of getting into syndication. So, what's the mission for you and Smart Asset Capital?
Yeah. So what essentially we do at Smart Asset Capital is we syndicate our deals. So that essentially means we are going out and creating these large partnerships. So we're bringing in other investors
Right.
to pool all of our money together to go out and buy larger deals than we could have on our own.
Right.
So really our main goal at the company first and foremost is to provide good returns to our limited partner investors.
Right.
That's always the most important thing, is taking care of our clients, right? So that's the main goal of the company, and then also hand in hand with that goes doing finding good deals, scaling into larger deals, because often the larger the deal, the more economies of scale there are, and the more opportunities there are to bring investors in.
Right.
So those two are really the driving factors of the company. And when you do both of those right,
Right.
you're going to make money yourself, and after all that's done. So that's generally our philosophy, and we've been just sticking to it and trying to do as best we can.
I like it. Okay. So we're gonna get into your story a little bit when it comes to the Smart Asset Capital piece of it. You said you were doing all of the syndications, and for those all full clarity, I'm doing just got finished doing not an actual syndicate, it's GV, but I've been involved in syndications before that didn't work out. What exactly drove you into the syndication space, and then from the syndication, what drove you to the real estate investment firm part? Because that's, I've always thought in my head that's like a big jump between one and two, but I was proven wrong with single family, and I thought development was a huge thing, but it's not really. You just do it.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, once I decided to get into syndication, it kind of started as, obviously there's more, there's different factors, right? You're bringing
Right.
in other investors' money. It's not just your own money you're going and putting down. So there's some more complexities that come into it. And with syndication, generally it means, you're going after larger deals for it to make sense in order to create partnerships. So
Okay.
there is certain, differences you have to learn, right? You have to learn with how to raise capital, how to deal with investors, how to properly asset management, how to underwrite the deals. So for me, as I kind of got into it, I was learning. Okay, there's five or six different pieces of the process in syndication.
Right.
Instead of trying to learn all of them, let me just take one piece, become strong in that piece, and then I'm gonna go out and find partners that are stronger in these other pieces. So I chose underwriting. So I
Right.
spent 6 months, a year learning everything I could about how to analyze a deal. And after I was confident enough, I went out, networked, and found partners that had more experience than me, had connections to capital, and us three joined together to create the company Smart Asset Capital, which
Right.
does syndicated deals. So I think as far as like creating the syndication structures and then also having your firm,
Mm-hmm.
I think it really the firm is the branding, right? So for us, Smart Asset Capital is the branding of that's who we are.
Right.
Each syndication is going to have its own entity as well. Each deal you do, you're going to buy, it's going to register its own LLC for each property.
Okay. Wait.
But
So before you keep going, I don't mean to cut you off, Brock. That's you said a couple key points that I want to hit on. First of all, let me get a pow pow for Brock, and just know the idea of knowing your lane. Like that's a crucial thing that so many super effective entrepreneurs and real estate investors have talked about on this particular podcast and the show. And let me get another pow pow just for you taking on the challenge of underwriting, because my God, bro, that underwriting to me is a nightmare. But so getting into that, so you when you said you were talking about specifically just the underwriting and getting into that part, why underwriting? Like we're gonna get back to it, but I want to know why underwriting for you, because that is scary for those who don't know what underwriting is. Why underwriting?
so it was kind of a natural fit. I mean, I just for my W-2 job, I was an analyst, so I kind of came from an analytical background a little bit.
Okay,
I understood how spreadsheets worked,
right.
and um, it kind of was just a natural as I was looking at the different roles that go into it. Honestly, it was the only one I could really figured I could learn on my own without experience.
I
I didn't
like
have
it.
connections to like family money or anything where I
Right.
could go that route. So for me, that's the one that made the most sense. And I ended up after learning. I mean, I actually enjoy underwriting. Like when you find a deal that you spend a couple hours underwriting, I actually enjoy it. So it might be kind of weird. I like
No, no, listen.
spreadsheets, but it was just a natural fit, I guess.
No, man, no judgment. Listen, I have heard people that like really weird things. Underwriting is not that bad. It is interesting for underwriters though when I meet underwriters, because you guys always have this super super analytical mind, and you always have a distinct attention to detail. When I go into a particular spreadsheet, it doesn't matter if it's like, I, you know, what is it, Mike LeBlanc or Jake and Gene? I don't care whose spreadsheet it is. It could be Jesus' spreadsheet. I'm gonna look at it and I'm immediately glaze over. I'm I'm confused. I'm lost within 5 seconds. So for those of us who are not underwriters, when you want to instruct somebody on, hey, this is what you need to look at, this is what you need to see. When let's say they want to bring you a deal, hey, you're talking to somebody and coaching them through, listen, I don't want to see, this is what I want you to see on here, 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 and here. What are the key things you're looking for when you're looking at that underwriting model?
Yeah, so I think there is definitely some differences in what sort of deal you're analyzing.
Right.
If you're looking at analyzing, or underwriting, analyzing, same thing. If you're looking at, underwriting a duplex, that's pretty basic. I mean, you could have one tab on a spreadsheet and, income, expenses, mortgage. It's pretty simple to line up the numbers there. It gets much more complicated when you're looking at partnership models and the syndication is what that is.
Right.
It gets more complicated then because then you have to factor in like the GP/LP splits. There's going to be, there's going to be different fees you're charging on a syndicated deal. So you
Absolutely.
have to look at several different layers. And generally, on a syndicated deal, you're going to have an exit.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to plan to hold it forever. You're going to plan a sale within 5 to 10 years generally.
Right.
So you have to encompass the proceeds from the exit. So there's much more that goes into it. So like my spreadsheet, I think it's like 8 tabs or so, and there's quite a bit in there. I built my own just because I've tried all the other ones that are out there. They're all good, but same thing you're saying. It was like some of them were just way too. There's too much detail in there that was never used,
Right.
and then some were just too basic that like didn't accurately analyze the deal. So I built my own. That's kind of middle of the fairway of both of that. But
Right.
it was yeah. I mean, it's definitely when you're getting into analyzing like partnerships structured deals,
Mm-hmm.
it gets a little bit more complicated. It's not, you can learn it pretty simply. It's just you have to really kind of dive in deeper when especially when you're taking on other people's money.
Interesting. So you built your own. Now, I'm full transparency, Brock. I forgot where we left off, but don't worry about it. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna ride this out. All right. So you said you built your own spreadsheet. I've always wondered how long did that process take, and how daunting is it? And in your, opinion, even as an underwriter, how difficult was it to do it from scratch, and how long did it take you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, realistically, probably over 100 hours easily.
Woo-wee.
And it's something I've I tweak as I'm going. If I find something, hey, I want to add this stat in there,
Right.
but really it actually came about during the lockdowns. I was finally I had a little bit more free time to kind of work on stuff I didn't have time for before, and sat down one night and you're like, whatever, screw it, I'm just going to build my own.
Right.
Um, and at the time it sounded like it ended up being a good idea, but it ended up being a lot more work than I thought. Like I said, I mean, well over 100 hours I put in a building just one spreadsheet, but now it's nice to have this template that I'm
Right.
comfortable with. And I've actually built out courses around it too now, that I've created like a course model for other people that are trying to learn how to underwrite. So it's been good. I mean, a lot stemmed out of me simply just playing around in spreadsheets.
What's really interesting about that is many times we find ourselves looking into something that we just have an issue with, like we're looking to fill a gap, right? And then this exactly what happened to you happens to just about everybody. You get, not only do you get that gap filled, but now you're teaching other people how to fill that gap using whatever you created, which is so cool. And then not to mention, because it's your spreadsheet, you've got like the idiosyncrasies of it. Oh, okay, if I do this, then I know this is going to happen. And it gets to a point, you look at so many spreadsheets, now you're just like, oh, NOI is this. No, that's not a deal. NOI is this. Oh, that is. Oh, what's the expense? Ooh, no, we're gonna. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yep.
really interesting. So did you experience that? Was that something that really happened for you afterwards?
Totally. Yeah. Really the biggest thing is you have to build the knowledge and stuff,
Right.
but practicing, just like, with any sport or anything, practice is what makes perfect. And the more you do it, the more you exercise that muscle, and you
Mm-hmm.
start seeing stuff, you'll be able to get quicker. Like you said, you'll be able to quickly tell, hey, oh, this expense ratio is way off,
Right.
or, this cap rate doesn't fall in line with where the market is. It's stuff you're not going to know all that stuff right when you're starting. Obviously, you have to learn it, but the more you just do it and do it and do it, now you're able to just quickly look at it and decide, yes or no within a few minutes. And then if it's yes, you're obviously going to spend more time digging into it, but being able to save that time of making a quick decision is huge.
All right. So back of the napkin. Let's say we're at a restaurant. You and I are at a restaurant. We're sitting down. Just picture us at a nice restaurant. It's not a date, Brock. Get out that out your head. Listen. So we're sitting at, we're sitting at a night restaurant, right? And I say, hey, Brock, I got this deal, and I'm writing stuff on the back of the napkin, and I turn it to you and say, okay, you want in or what? What should it be? What kind of five things do you want to see? Is it the LOI? Is it, hey, this is what I'm expecting in return? This is appreciation. What are you looking for on that back of that napkin?
I would say the size of the deal,
Okay.
the location. Is it a good location?
Ooh. Okay.
What's the appreciation going to look like there? What's the market like? The return, what's the overall return look like? What cap rate are we buying it at?
Right.
I like to look at the year one cash on cash return.
Okay.
Um, I'm a huge fan of buying deals that are already cash flowing. Um,
You and I both.
yeah, I know there's a lot of people that go after those heavy value add deals where they're losing money in the first year, but there's an opportunity to turn those around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of upside there. I like those deals too. But for me, my preferred deal is something where I'm walking in day one and I'm, getting a strong cash on cash return. So I'd say those are kind of the high level things I'd look at in that scenario.
Okay. Nice. So what's been the most impactful thing about this transition you've taken into, the smart asset capital part of it? What's been that most impactful thing or thing that you kind of realized along this path so far?
I would say the opportunities to build, and for lack of a better term, organization around it.
Mm,
As I was kind of looking at other models of, maybe I just try to save some money each year and buy a duplex,
right.
which is a good way to build wealth as well. But for me, I was like, I want to build an actual company with employees and an office, and I want to build this whole organization. And going after larger deals is really allows for that economies of scale where you're able to hire, a full-time on-site maintenance person, and we're able to hire a full-time assistant. Eventually we're able to hire a full-time, COO, and different positions where you're able to build systems around it and to build employees and to build something real, instead of just being a
Mm,
solo journey.
That's the key right there. It's got to be real. Authenticity is everything in every level. That's awesome. Okay, so let me ask you this too, then, Brock. You started this asset. You started Smart Asset Capital. You started this solo, right? This was just you starting out.
No, so I had I have two partners.
Okay.
So us three are the ones that started it.
Right.
So it was really for me, it was just the learning process, networking, and then I connected with those two partners, one of which already had a ton of experience, and that was
Mm,
really what lifted it off the ground. Without
right.
that, I mean, there's no way. Like my first deal was a duplex, my second deal was an 89 unit apartment building.
God, dog.
So
That's
I'm
a
not
dope.
gonna, I couldn't have done that on my own. I wouldn't even, the bank would have just laughed at me if
Right.
I would have showed them my net worth and tried to
Right.
qualify for a loan. So it's finding partners if you're looking to go that route, finding a good partner. I mean, that's a huge part of it.
Ooh, let's dive into that. And I know we're kind of all over the place. Just bear with me, Brock. Listen, we're going places here. You are talking about partnerships, and there's so many things that I like to pull out of the guests that I get to have on, and this is one of them that I like to hear about. How did you find good partners? Because networking is one thing. We can all go to an REI meeting and do all that stuff. But how'd you find these guys, your partners, and then how'd you know, okay, these guys are guys I can really work with. I can do something great with.
Yeah. So as far as how I found them, actually through Bigger Pockets, which is a great platform. If
Okay.
anyone hasn't heard of it, great place to network. Got in touch with someone. We were messaging like, hey, let's grab a coffee. We met up and we just started talking about. I think this is really how you kind of get to know whether the partnership's going to work. Is we started talking about our goals and what we wanted to do,
Right.
and we both had the same idea. We want to get in. We want to start buying larger deals, and that's we kept the conversations going. Met up a few more times, and after talking for several months, we finally like, hey, let's just do this together.
Mm.
So that's how us two started. And then we get our first big deal under contract, and we're like, oh shit, okay, I think we're a little. It's a little. I don't know if we're quite prepared to take this one down on our own. And he's got another buddy, and so the other buddy that had much more experience, and us three
Right.
kind of that's how it formed. So there's a lot of, I think, going to your second question. I mean, it's for the most important thing is obviously you got to get out and network, talk to people. That's how you're gonna meet these people. But you want to make sure your goals align, right? If one person's goal is, I just want to do smaller deals in this type of location, but the other person I want to do big deals and I want to grow this into 1,000 unit portfolio.
Right.
That's not long term. That's not going to align. So you really have to sit down, go over your goals, make sure you like the person. You don't want to go in business with someone you don't enjoy spending time with. So it's a lot of just I'd say reading the person and developing goals with each other.
Okay. Now, when you guys are looking at the target for the investment firm, what's the target when you're looking at who to bring in to invest with the investment firm? Or is that something that you are even doing? Is it you just kind of look to attract people, or are you actively seeking people out as well?
Yeah, so we're always looking for new investors because that's how we bring in capital to buy these deals. So generally, a person that's going to invest in a syndication as a limited partner
Mm-hmm.
is someone who wants the benefits of real estate, right? All the benefits we all know. They want those benefits, but they don't want to sign their name on the loan. They
Right.
don't want the tenant calling them.
Right.
They don't want any responsibility. They just want to collect the benefits.
Mm.
So that's where in a syndication it makes sense for a limited partner to invest. If you're on the other end where it's like, no, I want to be the one that's in charge of the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I want my name on the loan. I want all the decision authority. Then investing as in a syndication as a limited partner is not going to make sense because you don't have any authority.
Right.
So it's definitely when you have that conversation with people, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, well I want to be the active person. It's like, okay, then syndication doesn't make sense for you.
Right.
But there's a lot of people out there that they know the benefits of real estate, but they've always thought, I just don't want to be a landlord, so there's no way to get into real estate. But syndication provides that opportunity for people to get involved in real estate without having to with all the responsibilities.
Right. That nice, good, easy peasy passive investing. If those are you watching and listening aren't getting the hint, what I'm saying is check out Brock's team. Anyway, so now a little quick pitch.
I appreciate
I'm
it.
here for you, man. I'm here for you. So you do a lot when it comes to obviously you do a lot when it comes to the networking part. What's the piece of I guess kind of the piece of the brand, like as you're, because you're going place to place and place. I imagine you're at a lot of conferences. You're doing a lot of Zoom calls at this particular point with the COVID world as it is now. What is kind of like your key actions when you go into these meetings to find that investor that you're looking for?
I think it's a lot of speaking to and starting out. This is the hard part, is speaking to the deals we've already done and the
Right,
experience we've built.
right,
When you're first starting out, obviously you don't really have a track record to leverage. That's where leaning on your partners that might have a track record helps. But
right,
for now, I mean, now when we talk to investors, it's a lot of giving them our kind of business model and what sort of deals we're going after, what sort of deals we've done in the past, how those deals have performed. We kind of lay that all out. And some investors, they're looking for certain deals, and we'll be honest, say, that's not really the type of deal we're targeting, so it probably doesn't make sense
right,
for you to kind of stay in the loop with us. But most of the time, investors kind of like our approach, and we're able to bring them into the funnel, and then we just we let them know about deals we're working on, and if they're interested, they
right,
let us know, and we fill them up. Our deals fill up pretty quickly, so far it's been successful. But that's generally the approach we take, is we just lay it all on the table, and we're pretty honest about, we have deals that we have one deal that hasn't performed that well, and we're usually honest about it. I mean, we always are honest about it, and bring it up on the front end, so people know, this is what we've learned from this deal we did that didn't turn out so well. And investors, I think, see that they like us that we do that.
right. So, all right. So here's a question. This is gonna sound weird, but clearly, you're very good when it comes to the networking part, and I think this is something I want to ask, maybe for personal reasons. I've always been somewhat uncomfortable when it comes to talking to people about the stuff that I've done, but I always feel like, in my head, I feel like, oh, I'm gonna come off real douchey when I say this, right? So, so when you
Yep.
guys are, because you're clearly good at it, right? You've already had that conversation with some of the investors that you work with. How do you do it without sounding douchey when it comes to kind of, hey, this is what I've done, this is where I'm going, I'm gonna be amazing, yada yada yada, without having looking like that guy that nobody likes. How do you how do you do that?
No, you're totally right. That's a struggle I've had, especially with social media. Is like
Absolutely.
you said, you kind of have to be that douchey person to draw attention to yourself.
Right.
So it is a hurdle. I'm still haven't fully cleared. I think I've gotten better at just really not caring what people think, and just being honest. I'm not going to lie about make stuff up of what I've done, but just being honest, say, hey, this is what I've done. I mean, I
Right.
know it's nothing compared to this person that's done this, but I'm a lot further along in the journey than most people, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you could benefit from the knowledge I've gained so far. So that's usually, you're totally right. I mean, there's definitely that mindset shift you have to get over, of kind of not caring what people think. You don't want
Right.
to come across as some cocky person, but you also have to kind of lay it all out there and say, hey, this is what I've done. I'm good at this. Lay out your strong suits.
Right.
And if people don't like you, whatever, but most people are, I think, good to see the authenticity of not lying about stuff.
I think, let me get myself back in the screen here. Good grief, Ollie, get it together. So what I think is interesting is about that is you said that you sometimes you have to kind of be that guy, which I believe you. But just by talking to you, I know when you do it, you don't come off as that guy. Like it is, how are you controlling that? Because like again, I'll start saying, hey, I've done this, and don't get me wrong, I've been in the game a super long time. I'm just about to activate on this 19 unit, about to close this out here soon once we get the last
Nice.
round of signatures, right? But like I'm like, hey, I've done a 16 unit, I've done a flip, I've been in wholesale, you know what I mean? Like, is it kind of a subtle conversation? Do you kind of start off with, hey, I'm Brock, I'm the man, or do you say, hey, I'm Brock, this is what I do, what about you, what do you do, and kind of really dig in? Because I feel like there's always going to be more to the conversation than just, hey, look at me, hey, look at me.
Exactly. The later point you said for sure is you
Right,
start the conversation with just, this high level. You're not like going into detail. Well, this is all I've done. And eventually, in most conversations, they're going to bring it up. And
right,
then that's the opportunity, like you said, where you can dive in and then really start explaining, okay, that's your chance to be cocky, right? And to kind of brag about what you've done. But totally right. You don't, on the front end, you don't want to just start, within 10 seconds of the call, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I'd usually just kind of keep it high level and say, hey, I've had some experience. I've done 6 deals, um, and then maybe you just keep it pretty high level. And then once they ask that question, that's your chance to dig in with the approval of being able to.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like I said, it sounds like you're more. It's a subtle move for you. It's really something that you kind of practice. How long did it take for you to figure that part out though? Because that's always like the funny part is how long it takes to kind of get that down pat. How long did that take you, and what was like the kind of practice moves you did for it?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think like getting on calls in the beginning, right? I mean, if I had a call lined up with a potential investor that I knew they were successful, I knew they had a good amount of money to deploy into a deal. I used to be really nervous, like, oh, how do I go about this conversation? I would
Right.
kind of overthink about it, and sometimes kind of go down a path that didn't really make sense to be talking about in that conversation.
Right.
But again, I think going back to a lot of it, do your pre-call thing and kind of think through in your head. Okay, if they ask, be ready for the questions they're going to ask. A lot you can be prepared for a lot of questions people are going to ask on an investor call,
Right.
and kind of just write down think in your head, this is how I'm going to respond to that question. But again, a lot of it's just repetition and doing it. I mean, the more calls you take, the more networking events you go to, the more deals you do, the more you're going to build that muscle and just know naturally this is the response. Then the more and more deals we do, and the more investor calls we have,
Mm-hmm.
we always learn. There's always some nugget to take out of each thing we do, but it's a lot of the same questions are going to come up on a deal, and we've learned, this is the way to answer it. This is how to frame the pitch. This is how we're going to start the conversation to get an investor to decide whether this investor is the right fit or not. So a lot of it is you can do your homework on the front end, but also just getting out there and doing it and not being scared to get on a call.
So it's really about that, like you said, about that getting over that fear. Now I know we're up against. I think it's segment time, but for now we're gonna postpone segment time because I want to talk about this a little bit more. You talked about the fear. How, as a real estate investor, particularly as you're getting through like your very first, like you said, you went from four to what? What was it? 65 unit, right?
89.
Eight. Jesus Christ! All right, so you went from you went from a fourplex to 89. I don't know my math. I'm not great at math, but I can tell you that's more than 2 times the fourplex. So with that being said, how did you deal with that fear? How did you? Because I know you having a partner who has experience offset a little bit, right? But
Yep.
I know, God knows, I know in the back of your head you were like, oh my God, what am I doing? How did you deal with that fear? How did you overcome that?
It's a great question. You're totally right. I mean, it definitely helped having a partner to say, okay, this person has much more experience. They
Right,
like the deal, so that part definitely helped. But you're totally right. Because I mean, I was the one that was doing the underwriting, and I'm kind of the one that was given the say so on this deal works.
right,
So it's a lot of pressure for sure, and definitely was scary on the first one. I mean, you're sitting there, looking back at the numbers every day, like, oh, where did I mess up somewhere? Or what am I doing wrong? So there's definitely that hurdle you have to get over where you finally just have to say it. I think this is a lot of when it comes to like analyzing a deal. A lot of people get the analysis paralysis where they just keep analyzing deals, and even if it's a good deal, they find a way to tell themselves, no, this deal isn't good. You got to be conservative, and you got to properly analyze a deal and make sure you're not using aggressive assumptions. But at some point, you have to take a risk. I mean, in any investment, I mean, you can invest in bonds and stuff where obviously there's no risk there, but in any investment where there's a chance to create sizable income or sizable return, there's going to be some component of risk in that deal. And you just have to get comfortable with the risk, make sure it's a calculated decision you're making based upon the risk. But eventually you just have to say screw it and take the jump and go in on
Ooh, I like the screw it call. The screw it call is one of my favorites. It's gotten me in tons of trouble, but my God, if I don't do it 20 times a day, regardless. Uh, that's okay. That's fantastic advice, man. So we're gonna hop into segments now because I want to make sure they take that away. But we got to get into the segments in FAQ, and I want to burn up all your time. And we'll talk about. We might have to get you back on, Brock, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
it. Definitely.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're going to go into segments. So segments, this is how it works, ladies and gentlemen, watching and listening. I'm going to ask Brock 2 questions, and it's the same standard questions after every podcast interview. So the first question is the troop to task. And what the troop to task is, Brock, is you're going to give the listener and viewer one thing they can do right now to start their way down the real estate path.
I would say go and find a networking event in your local market. Find in any market, unless you live in some small city in the middle of nowhere. Most markets have local real estate meetups. Find out about that real estate meetup, join their Facebook group, and get on their list and go attend an event. Even if you have no experience, just get out there and start meeting people and letting people know what your goals are, and you'll be surprised how much quicker your journey goes.
I love it. I'm going to add something on to it. I'm going to give you a little bit of bonus here. If you're in that small area and there is no real estate investing meeting you can go to, start one. It sounds crazy,
Yep.
but I've done it. I did it in a small town. I still talk to those guys every now and then, and it's just the connections you make is bouncing away. Like, it's just amazing. Anyway, now next question. Next question, Brock, is what question do you wish you were asked more often, and what's the answer to that question?
I would say I would. The question I wish I was asked more often was,
Yeah.
what is like your long term goal?
Ooh. Okay.
10 years, 20 years, over your entire life. Like, what's your more long term goal, instead of just thinking about, what am I trying to accomplish next week, or
Right.
what am I trying to do today?
Right.
Sitting down and kind of planning out what's your overall goal. I think too many people just they never think about that, right? They're thinking about all
Right.
this other stuff, and how they're going to buy their new car and everything like that, but they don't sit down and think, how am I going to, what am I going to do in retirement? At what age do I want to retire?
Right.
Stuff like that. I wish I earlier in high school or beginning in college, and created a plan earlier on that could have even accelerated my journey much quicker. Um, as far as the answer, I mean, I think it's caused me to just think much bigger, and I've set much larger goals than 3 4 years ago. If I would have told you the goals I have set now, it would I would have laughed at myself. But I think that's what really changed my mindset. Is there's no capacity on how big your goals can be.
I like it. That's good stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Brock, I've got to let Brock go for now. We got to go. We got to go into the FAQ, and then I'm going to let him go. But Brock, I want to make sure I give everybody the opportunity to reach out to you. How can they reach out to you? How can they work with you and the teams at Smart Asset Capital? How can they become a real estate investor? I'm gonna leave the floor to you.
Definitely. So I would say Instagram. I'm pretty active there, and I try to post as much educational real estate stuff I can there. So that's just my first and last name, Brock Morgenson. So you can send me a message there. My email, Brock at smartassetcapital.com. Smartassetcapital.com is our investment arm. And then we also have like an educational media arm, and that's capitalclub.io. So I have a ton of free resources there. And you can also find the link to my underwriting course I mentioned. So several different ways. I mean, get in contact with me. Happy to answer anyone's questions.
I love it, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Brock Morgenson. Brock, man, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited now. I'm just happy. I'm happy we got to get on here and talk. These are all interesting questions that I wanted to ask the questions for, and I got my answers. And I'm looking for the next time we get you on. But for them now, for those of you watching, listening, make sure you go check out the FAQ. It won't be directly after this episode. Next, you're gonna get a solo with me going over what I talked about with Brock and what I took from it. And I'd love for you guys to chime in. But for now, we're gonna go. We love you. We think you're great and wonderful. You're going to be great in this real estate space, whether you're doing real estate branding or you're just buying up every property in the world. Remember, you're better than you were, but you're not half as good as you're going to be. We're going to go for now, and we'll see you guys soon. Say bye, Brock.
Bye. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys.